But whatever. Luigi's Mansion 2. Weird that they're calling it Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. I don't think they've called any other re-release like whatever HD on the Switch, but
also, I don't know if it was just the trailer. Didn't look HD. It looked like a port of a DS game.
Yep.
I didn't take a good enough look at it. I kind of skipped like any of the ones where I was like, oh, I've seen this before or whatever. I kind of like skip because I was after the fact. I just kind of skimmed through it quickly.
Yeah.
So I have been actually meaning to like maybe I'll just put that on before bed because I do kind of feel like just watching like something while I lay down.
Mm-hmm.
So watch that in earnest because it just got me kind of excited because there were just multiple times I was like, oh shit, I didn't see that coming. So,
yeah.
Kind of a fun one.
It was.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah, it felt good to get like excited about a bunch of video games again.
It's been a while.
Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with John Hines.
Hey there.
And Randall Nolery.
Hey folks.
And we are back, as always, to talk about some video games. We've all had some pretty hectic schedules as of late. I guess we've been saying that. I feel like I've been saying that the last few weeks, whether it's been regular episodes or save it for the cast intros or whatever. I'm just like, man, I've been swamped, still been busy with the new job, although I feel like I'm kind of finally out of the weeds of the training and like it's not pure information overload. So I've been doing a little bit more gaming lately, but I haven't been playing too many new things. But I know, John, why don't we kick it over to you first since you are the second one of us. I think we're going in the same order we did last year as far as knocking off our resolution games. I could be wrong. I definitely just know I was last time, I guess, but which I'm going to be again. But, but yeah, I know you started up and maybe even finished your resolution game.
So I played Heaven Will Be Mine, and right off the bat, I want to get a couple content warnings right off the bat. So, like, if any of this is, maybe sensitive subject for you, like, feel free to just skip ahead. But
yeah, I'll timestamp where like the next game or whatever topic will start. So
yeah, but there's a lot of discussion of transphobia, body dysmorphia, like different forms of bigotry and just oppression and violence in a sci-fi setting. Wow. But Heaven Will Be Mine is a sci-fi romance visual novel mech game made by Worst Girl Games, and it is a visual novel game that follows 3 mech pilots, and you can choose your routes based on those, and whichever one you choose, you will be interacting with the other 2. So you'll get different aspects of a story, and they follow 3 different factions that are it is a very tangled web of like narrative, which is, I think, the game's strong point, and I think one of the best parts about it is that it is not very on its face expository. It kind of gives you information, and then as you play more of the game, you get to figure out more of it. But I played the first playthrough playing as Saturn, who is a member of Celestial Mechanics, which is, oh boy, I keep wanting to like go into depth on something, but I also want to say as a caveat, like, I think that if you are interested in this game at all, that I think you should just play it without listening to anything else, because I think that this is a singular game experience that I had that I've not experienced any other way. And like, legitimately, this might be one of my favorite games of all time. Like, it's
okay, dang, man.
It's so good. Like, I have not played anything remotely like this, and that's mostly because like I haven't delved too deeply into like the visual novel as a genre.
I was just gonna ask like if you've played a ton of those.
Not really. Like, I've played a few, and they're usually like, oh, here's a character and here are like the like different routes that you can focus on, and like that will tell you a different story. But like this game in particular, and I really want to play their other game, which is We Know the Devil, which is also a game that instead of dealing with mechs and all of those topics that before, it's those topics, but with teen girls trying to summon a demon from hell.
Sure.
Or the devil. I don't know because
Makes
I haven't
sense.
played it, but
Yep.
it is the three factions are. Oh man, I like. Okay, if you have taken the off ramp, I'm gonna get into like kind of spoiler territory,
Let's go.
or not even spoiler, just like explaining territory, because like the game is It's a story. You read it and you unravel bits and pieces of it, or you get greater detail the different paths you take. And I've taken.
So there's not like a ton of like gameplay interspersed into the visual novelness. Like it's pretty much purely just like going through the story and picking your path and whatnot.
Yes, and
Paired with a great soundtrack and visuals, because I know you mentioned the soundtrack before we started recording, and then also the visuals. You sent some screenshots too, and it was like, man, this is very striking too.
It is gorgeous. Like like all the presentation aspect of it, the way that the UI is built around like the mech pilots. And there are the setting of the story is that humans have tried to explore outside of space and tried to face the existential threat, which is that we live in an infinite universe and maybe humans should spread out among the stars to like try to preserve some moment of humanity. But as you spread out, you lose connection with what make humans, and that is the like connection to the earth, connection to other people. And like if you give someone like, if you are so removed from Earth that you cannot communicate with Earth anymore, at what point do you start becoming something different than human?
Yeah.
And this becomes a like huge allegory for like being trans in general. And like there is a idea of a first generation of pilots that went out. And initially, we were sending out pilots that were adults who could handle being changed and becoming more than human. And then eventually it became a program where, you know, children were able to like understand who they were and like make that decision for themselves. But people on Earth were not comfortable with children making that decision for themselves. So even though the pilots are at home being like finding who they are and like realizing and becoming comfortable with who they are, people on Earth are not comfortable with people finding who they are if what they determine who they are is making them uncomfortable and not fitting within their definitions of what a human is. And like there is so much like really good in-depth like interplay between the different factions and how they embody their philosophy on post-humanism in terms of how their like mechs work and their ship selves, which is also then becomes an entire conversation on what is the line between a body and a mind,
right,
where the pilots become the mind and the ships become the body. And one of the first character that is like the default character that you can pick, Saturn, she pilots a mech that like has a form, but it is explicitly able to be destroyed and reconstructed constantly. So it is a lot of discussion of like, how much can you destroy your body if your mind is intact, and like if you are comfortable with it, like does your body matter, and like at what point can you become comfortable in that. It is such in-depth and like really beautiful storytelling in a like very like visceral way that I've not encountered in much other like video game media.
Certainly not in video games. Yeah.
And I think it probably helps that you're like not getting bogged down with like game mechanics, you know, you're just like going along and making your choices and like just getting invested in the story, where like I think that's like something that I like get like when I play like an RPG or something, I'm kind of torn between doing quests and like following the story, and I just end up getting lost. Where like this is like just focus on this.
And like I think that's the reason why I love it as a visual novel, is because like it is really using that framework of storytelling, especially in something that in the more like abstract points of the story deal very heavily with like what reality is and what choices are and like what like any consequences of choices you make are. So like having that be the main method of interacting with the narrative like is incredible. And like I finished a playthrough of each of the main characters once.
I was just going to ask if you played the others.
Yeah. And each one I tried to do something different, and I didn't really know what was going on in my first playthrough in terms of like getting a handle on what choices like lead to mechanics. So like I ended up getting, I've only seen 2 endings, even though I've played 3 playthroughs of each character. But like it's, I don't know, man. Like I've encountered stuff that like I really feel is so unique to this method, and that may again be me just playing it like a visual novel for like of any merit for the first time in years. But like, man, this story and the way that it was told is just so far and away better than like anything else I've encountered in a video game that it's kind of embarrassing. Like,
well, it's definitely cool to like see like or at least in my head, at least it's cool to like think of like experience a game through like 3 different, I'm assuming it's like the same timeline / storyline between the 3 playthroughs, so you're just kind of like experiencing it through a different character. Not that that hasn't been done in other games before, where you're like experiencing the same timeline through a different character or replaying something or whatever, but I don't know, just, again, like doing it
sounds like you're experiencing the same questions around like identity, not just like physical identity, although that's part of it, and then like consciousness and what that means outside of the construct of a dominant culture, if you're out in space, on top of that. And that's it's very so interesting. Good.
Like I cannot recommend this game enough. Like it's also I'm a sucker for mechs as like a genre, but like really leaning heavily into like body and mind, which has always kind of been what like mechs as a genre have been, but like really digging into that of like what makes you and like how do like other people like want to constrain you, and like also the way that the setting like deals with mechs, where it's like mechs were never really meant to be like weapons because they're impractical for it, and like part of the game is that like there are these 3 like competing factions on how do we like exist in the world, and like how do we like allow basically other people to like let us live as we are and as who we want to be, when at the end of the day they can just build a gun and kill us way more efficiently than we ever could as like a mech, because mechs aren't built for killing. Like they're built for expression. Humans aren't built for killing. Like we aren't weapons. We're meant to like express and like emote and feel, and I don't know. It's such a fucking good game, man.
No, that's awesome, man. And I'm glad you were playing this on PC, right?
Yeah.
Because I know you don't have like the best setup for that, is in terms of like, you're not like in a room with surround sound and like getting immersed, so the fact that you were able to get that sucked into it, even just like playing on your PC in a closet or wherever you were set up at.
But with headphones fucking did a number.
Dude, I cannot, from all the times that I've streamed and played with headphones on, I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, even when I'm playing Switch handheld, I'm thinking I should probably dig out my headphones and plug them in, because that would definitely enhance this experience,
Right.
But also, just I briefly, I think I got off topic, but like the UI elements of it, like really do, like there are optional comms things, there are optional emails where you go and you can get more like background story or like conversations with whoever is your like satellite officer, and like it's always just so entertaining. Every single character, like from the playable ones to like the background characters you never see to your like satellite officer, like every interplay is just so enjoyable and like great.
Is each
incredible.
character like its own campaign, or are they kind of interwoven where you can jump between them when you're playing one?
All the same save file, but they do all have, it's 8 days, and so there are 4 whatchamacalls, it's like levels, I don't know, you would like mission select screens where you will choose one. You have to choose both, but as you choose them, there's an option to either like be loyal to your side and have your side come out on top, or betray your side and have the opposing faction come out on top.
Ooh.
And like those are the choices for every mission on every day. So once you have done every single one of those and made that choice, it's like, in terms of a visual novel or a dating sim, it is very straightforward. Like there's not really a ton of like branching paths or
layers or whatever.
It's not like a tree. It's more of a like the way that the game, like using the language of the game, it's gravity between these factions, and the choices that you do like distort the gravitational pull between them, and it's the idea of like I don't want to get into so much more, but like I just love this game so much,
because you could be talking about like the culture that you were raised in versus a culture that might be better suited for you, or intuitively makes more sense, but it is not as familiar and safe as what you were raised in, right?
Man, so there a line that I did want to like keep in my head was like they're just like in one of the like interstitial like briefs between levels, like you get little excerpts from either background characters or historical characters, and one of them was like, we wanted to see how far from human we could get, and before they shut us down, we got very close. And I was like, oh, that's such a good line. This is such a good love it.
Jeez. I'm glad it panned out because sometimes those resolution games, like you build up the hype in your head and get like excited to play something, and like, it didn't quite live up to what I thought it was going to be. But
I'm so glad that we have this format, because I've had this game for years and I've known I would like it, and like instantly
just needed a reason to play it. Yeah.
That push.
Heck yeah. Well, to just shift gears totally, I guess, here. Kick it over to some of the other stuff that, exactly. Randall's been playing the latest iteration of NBA 2K.
Yeah, every iteration turns out. However many years of iterations, that's the one.
Hey, we need the
playing.
update. I feel like you've been talking about this since like 2K19. Am I
18,
right on that?
I think. Yeah.
18, man. So we've got like more than 5 years worth of NBA 2K coverage.
Yeah,
because
they'd give the old 2Ks away on Switch for like less than
$2 during the NBA playoffs or whatever. Yeah.
You'd be a fool not to buy that and have it take up all the space on your Switch.
Yeah, seriously.
And look like graphics from borderline like Dreamcast era, but it still plays pretty well.
Seriously.
But yeah, the NBA 2K24, it is that time again. The NBA season is almost among us here. So, that was available for pre-order. I bought the version that gives me the league pass again because I am a basketball fiend. I have to. I don't have to, but I do have to. So I did that. It is quote unquote cheaper to do that, so I did so again.
Yeah.
And it's an annualized, serialized sports franchise game. It's not like there's some groundbreaking changes from one year to the next, but I love it all the same. And I'm playing it on, again, the Xbox Series X and the quote unquote. I guess they're still calling it next gen. The nomenclature is really confusing, but it's It plays great. I'll say, like, you can tell that there's still just like little nips and tucks to like the gameplay, the fluidity of it all, the closeness to like the real simmed basketball products, both on the NBA and WNBA side, which I appreciate a ton on both sides, and especially so because again, Seattle does not have an NBA franchise, so it's nice to still have some representation too on the W side.
And even just watching games, whether if you're watching a WNBA game versus an NBA game, they have a different feel and pace and flavor. So the fact that they're able to kind of capture that in the game form, when I watch a WNBA game, I'm like, this is a little bit quicker pace. Like there's faster breaks more frequently, and if they're able to capture that, I'm like, this is awesome.
Yes,
I kind of feel like a lot of times the WNBA games are more exciting. So.
They are, and they have a better kind of team ball flow. There's a lot more like on the fly double teams happening on defense and things like that. And I love watching the WNBA.
Same.
And right now we're in the midst of the playoffs, and the Aces are in kill mode, so it might be all for naught. But the Liberty are good too. I'll probably end up rooting for the Liberty if they make the finals because of the Breanna Stewart connection from the Seattle Storm, even though she left us. I can't blame her though.
And having like real life sports going on alongside playing like the current game, it adds so much to the game. I remember like getting the new Madden games and like, oh, the season's about to start, let's go.
And as
that was just super fun.
It's true, and as many have said, it's self-reinforcing, right? Where because you have the video game, you are more familiar with the modern players and what teams they're on. Right. And then, you tune in for a game either on the W or the NBA and there they are. And like you already kind of know, you know a lot more about that, just turning on a game or watching highlights. And then it just this self-reinforcing thing. But there's a lot of modes. Again, I'm kind of leaning more towards the my career mode, which is the single player. Like I'm just one guy. He's Randall Nolery. This time he's a small forward instead of a power forward. Last year I was an undersized power forward, 3-and-D sort of guy. This time I'm still defensive minded. I still have those Detroit roots, but I'm a small forward, 6'6" with a 6'11" wingspan. So I'm out there playing hella defense, dunking the ball a lot, trying to shoot 3-pointers, and being very fundamental, of course, of it all. So that's just kind of grinding my way, gaining levels. There's a whole story mode and stuff, but honestly, they've also streamlined that where I've engaged with almost none of that. I just play the games and up my little numbers in different regards after every game when they give me my points to spend. There are nefarious things to spend real money above and beyond. I've done none of that this year, and I'm fairly proud of myself in that regard too. So that's allowed me not to break the difficulty curve, which kind of happened in previous years with some of that stuff too. So
a lot of times just bypassing that stuff, like it's nice in the moment, but then you're like, but now that's like it just kind of ruins the flow of the game.
You steal your own bounce. That's right. It's no good. So I'm not doing that this time. I'm kind of slow playing it and just doing the single player. Haven't done really any of the online stuff. There's a whole like Kobe Mamba like relive his best moments stuff, and respects to Kobe, more kind of like love to hate him sort of thing when he was playing. I grew up a Pistons fan, so there's the natural rivalry stuff there. So I might touch that stuff later. Last year it was the Jordan stuff, but I never really got around to it. So it's kind of the same deal this year, same sort of thing. So it's kind of cool that it's there. It's another kind of single player mode where if you want to engage in that stuff, it's there. And then there's the My GM mode. I kind of touched on that a little bit in previous years. That's the mode that used to suck me in like crazy. The real,
I was going to say it's
spreadsheets.
I was going to say it's interesting how you've kind of shifted from like My GM mode to it's My Career mode, you said?
Yeah.
It's a different life. It's a different game.
Yeah, seriously. But it's cool that like, you can dive into all these different options, or again, obviously you can just do quick exhibitions too.
Yes.
If you just like got a buddy over to play.
Yes.
And although it is, again, we've talked and we've talked about before, though, it is a little tougher to pick up. Like, and I don't know if it's any easier, but I remember playing those on Switch and like, man, I can't make a shot in this game.
It is not any easier. It becomes more and more realistic and simulation based every year. And, I sink my teeth in that like crazy, but it's also because I've had all these years now of experience with this engine, right? So it just feels like riding a bike to me, and but still provides that kind of difficulty back and forth with me. It's almost kind of like another, I don't know, like Dark Souls in its own way, but basketball. And it's like the complication of, control and difficulty, but like wanting to overcome that mountain sort of thing. And when you get in that flow state, it's just like, oh, hell yeah. Like, but that's not easy to do by any stretch.
No, I definitely see what you're saying for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a fan.
I don't know. We can any more on that for now, or should we move on from there? I'm sure we'll come back to some basketball. In the future,
it's something in the background. It's like every year. It's a thing I turn on for like my light therapy after work or whatever. Right? It's that. It is that thing.
Yeah,
it's the refragmenting that's really all I've had of your brain.
That's all I've really had time for these days. Yes. So I'm just like, hey, give me more of that kind of stuff. Yeah,
it is absolutely that. The other thing that I've been playing lately-ish, not in the last week or two, just because things have been even more busy, but before then, Analog Pocket, it's been great to go back to stuff. I've talked about my slight issues with the Pocket, but I can't resist that screen and the just general convenience of it all, right? So, on to another Game Boy Advance game after beating Zero Mission, Castlevania Circle of the Moon, something we've talked about
nice
a little bit in the past. I talked about my past with that before too, but like played it a bit before when the GBA launched. EB Games whole trade-in thing, trade in 5 bullshit Game Boy games, you get Game Boy Advance games. That was one of them, along with Choo Choo Rocket, some others, yada yada. But I never beat it at the time. There's no backlit Game Boys at the time. That was, reviewers just took this game to task for that at the time. But now I'm playing it on the Pocket. It's very backlit, and those colors are amazing, and it's so crisp.
It's so good.
It's so good.
Yeah. It really pops. Yeah, I remember even playing
it's
it
so
on
dark.
DS Lite back in the day, and I was like, this game pops.
It is so dark and like all in like the same color gradient, but when you have a fully lit screen, it's gorgeous.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, I love the color vibrancy of it. I'm like, oh, this rules. Like I'm a big fan of it, and like I know some of that they did on purpose because of those limitations, but I'm happy all the same with the choices that they made. Now that I've got a screen that can really show it off. And I don't know, I didn't check to see how many hours I put in, but it had to have been, at least like 6 or 8 hours into this. I've got a lot of the DSS cards so far. Yeah. Like I said, I'm playing on the actual cartridge, not that anniversary collection, which seems cool, but I had the cartridge. I rebought it at the Retro Game Expo last year that I went, got it for $10. So I'm like, let's actually just play this. Let's really spend time to sit here and play through these Game Boy Advance, Igavanias, because Symphony of the Night is the shit, and I want to play through these other games like in earnest, like the GBA and the DS ones at some point. So let's start from the beginning.
How's the sound coming through the Pocket? Are you playing with headphones, or is there a built-in speaker?
Yeah, there's built-in speaker. It sounds fine. It's one of those things too where it's the Game Boy Advance sound. It's a little limited, a little hissy.
that single like mono speaker on there.
Yeah, but it sounds pretty good for what it is. And the Pocket I think has a little bit of enhancements for to get around and kind of, I don't know, smooth out. It's probably the wrong way to put it, but like it sounds pretty good. With the kind of default selections through the Pocket. I probably should try to plug headphones into that thing. I haven't done that at all yet, but some of those songs are incredible on Circle of the Moon too. Just all-time Castlevania classics are on there. And I think maybe it was Aria of Sorrow. One of those Castlevania games during that era came with a pre-order bonus that I got that had like a CD soundtrack, and it included a couple of the tracks. I think Awake might have been one of them that was on Circle of the Moon, and it was like, oh, this is my shit. This is awesome. And like, I still have that on all the iPods that I've ever owned. It's like, I gotta have that Castlevania soundtrack on there.
A pack-in soundtrack was I had the Baten Kaido CD.
Nice.
Ooh, nice. I still have that Chrono
sun.
Trigger soundtrack CD with the DS release.
Ooh, those are both really good ones. Both of those are probably worth a lot of money, actually.
Yeah, it's kicking around here somewhere, one of these boxes, yeah.
Yeah, that was that era, though, wasn't it? Like, you just gotta get those way more often. But
some kind of bonus, yeah.
I played a lot of it. I got to an area, and I probably should ask you, John. You'll probably tell me to keep going, and you probably should. But I got to an area where like there's all kind of like there's like this low level of like acid on the floor, and there's these asshole like reptile men are all over the place, and it's like I'm getting damaged a lot just like walking around in this area like on the floor. I don't know.
So there is another area you can go to.
Okay.
That is not that, because there is that area opens up before. I mean, the two areas open up simultaneously. I think with that, and one of that is the area that you're like, oh, I can go here, and that it's so oppressive and bad that you're like, maybe I should look for another place.
I kept pushing through it. Yeah, like some of those DSS card abilities are like you're invincible if you get hit, and like for however many frames, there's there's a whole bunch of these combinations you can do with those DSS cards. You
can cheese it.
Playing with that.
You can get through it, but it's not pleasant.
That's how it felt. It felt like I was cheesing it, and I shouldn't have.
Yeah, there are other avenues around.
Noted. Okay.
Nice.
All right. I won't drop this entirely. I was close to doing that. I'm like, I played a lot of this. Maybe I have the gist of it. I'm like, no, but you played so much of it. Like, try to see it through. I've been enjoying it a lot. I don't really have a lot of things negative to say about it, despite it being a launch title for the Game Boy Advance.
I was just going to say, this was the first of the GBA ones, right?
Yeah. And the first one after Symphony of the Night to have the kind of Symphony of the Night.
To kind of carry that torch. Yeah.
Yes.
And I would say it did it pretty well. Like all of those like 5 releases that they did that followed that up, I feel like, to varying degrees, and not that I played all of them, but I feel like they did a good job. I own most of them and have played a little bit of all of them. So
yeah, they all had like different specialties, and like I think whichever one like speaks to you is like, oh yeah, this is what I like. This is what I think a Castlevania game is, and like I think they're all great for different reasons.
Yes.
Yeah.
I get that vibe too. I'll stick with it. I love Symphony of the Night, and I just want to
I still need to play that game. I've only ever with pretty much most of the Castlevanias. I've just kind of dabbled with them all. Like I had I think the Xbox 360 version of Symphony of the Night, or maybe it was on PlayStation 3, maybe both. But I only played like a little bit of it.
Ugh.
Yep.
So many of those games.
All right, I'll keep playing it, John. I will keep playing it. I want to.
Heck yeah.
And I'll move on to my double pack of Aria of Sorrow and the other Game Boy Advance one, whatever the one
I think that's what I own as well. Yeah.
Which is also very rare and expensive for what it's worth.
Is it?
That double pack? Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Because in my head, I'm like, I don't want to own this. I need to own them individually or whatever. I know. My stupid collector brain.
You and me both.
Yeah. Hey, maybe if I can sell the 2-pack and buy a copy of each individual, maybe it's worth the squeeze.
God.
But yeah, I guess we can move on to probably what we'll wrap things up here with, if you're good to leave it there on the Castlevania stuff, Randall.
For now.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll come back to all this stuff eventually, but I know something that we've all been playing kind of by surprise. I'll say that I came home from work the other day and I had no idea there was a Nintendo Direct going on.
Yeah.
I logged onto my Switch to just either play some Shotgun King, which is what I've pretty much just been playing ad nauseum lately on my Switch, which I've talked about a bunch lately. Or I've been playing a little bit of Tumble Seed too, and I was just like, let me log onto my Switch, and then I saw all of a sudden I see F-Zero 99 on like the notifications thing, And at first, it didn't actually click into my brain that it was one of those, like Nintendo's done a number of these like kind of battle royale takes on their old retro games now. And my first reaction was just like, oh shit, new F-Zero game. Like, what the heck? And then I was like, oh, new Nintendo Direct today. So I actually didn't watch the whole thing. I just kind of breezed through it. But honestly, it was like jam packed with stuff. But I think F-Zero 99 was the only thing that was like kind of like announced right now. Like it's available now.
Right.
You know, kind of surprise launch announced or whatever. I could be wrong because they did announce quite a few things. And feel free. I don't know if you guys had anything else that kind of like jumped out at you as like, oh man, heck yeah. During
not
that
the
Nintendo
available
Direct,
now stuff. I think that was the big one. That was the big right now takeaway.
Yeah, that was definitely the like, oh, this is I can log online right now. And the thing I'll say, like after playing this, I've probably played a good hour or two at this point. I've done a good, I don't know, I'm up to a B- ranking. I just got up to that just before today. I was thinking I was at C-, and all of a sudden it jumped up to B-, and I was like, oh yeah, I was at C+. Nice. So I kind of like the way the ranking system works. Like you just kind of like, and again, it's just kind of like traditional battle royale. You race against 98 other players, and you're essentially playing like the Super Nintendo version of F-Zero, except it's like a little more 3D, a little more souped up. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I would say so.
It's a widescreen, is it?
Yeah, and it's all,
you know, it's just it's nice to look at like real retro pixely stuff on modern TVs and just that vibrancy pop, right? It's just like ooh,
and like that really fast paced like mode 7, I want to say is what they're using with F-Zero. So like seeing that in like super smooth. And I also want to say that this is maybe the most impressive online thing Nintendo's ever done, like in terms of like having 99 players all playing simultaneously, interacting with each other in real time. Where like otherwise, like I feel like with like Mario 35, like and even Tetris 99 and stuff, like you're kind of like everyone's playing their own individual game, and like there's stuff happening between the games, but like I don't know, it just feels like it for the most part I haven't had any issues. I just log on, I play, it works. I'm not getting booted from the game. I'm like, man, this is just working. Okay, nice.
Yeah.
But as someone who's like, I've played not a ton of the F-Zero series. I own the original F-Zero on Super Nintendo, but never owned it as a kid. Kind of only played it more as like a, you know, teen whenever I got the game. I don't know, growing up collecting.
Young adult.
Adult. Yeah, and like played it a little bit then, was always kind of terrible at it. We were talking about it in the Discord. Like half the time I couldn't even finish a race. Like I just explode before it was even over. So have been kind of relieved that like, oh, okay, I'm doing okay in this game once I got the swing of things. But yeah, I don't know. I've been actually really impressed with like the menus and like how clean everything is. Like it feels like a really polished release, like to the point where, you know, while they took away Mario 35, I'd be a little bit surprised if they pulled the plug on this one. It seems like they're kind of planning on supporting it for a while. Like it seems like they're planning on adding more tracks and more. Yeah, it's just so well done, and like so it just seems like they poured a lot of love into this release. So I don't know. I've been really having a lot of fun with it so far. I think my best finish out of is 16th place, but that was a lot of luck involved. I'm having a little bit of trouble like wrangling the controls. It's just kind of like they're still not becoming second nature, like the way like holding down B to accelerate, A for boost, the drift on like and I'm playing mostly handheld, so I've got like my big Hori Split Pad Pro. Randall and I were talking about this a little bit before we started, but like because I'm like gripping and holding down accelerate most of the time, I'm like when I have to let that go to like feather around a corner, because I'm playing so much Mario Kart 8 with my pals lately too, it's like the drifting is so different in this game compared to that. It's just like not clicking 100%. So I'm like, I'm definitely, again, I didn't expect to win any of these races. I'd say most of the time I'm coming in like in the 50th, like middle of the pack, like 50th place. Every now and then I'll get closer to 25. But
have you tried swapping cars much?
A little bit. I started with mostly playing, God, I forget what they're all called now, but the one on the very bottom at first. Like that kind of rounded one.
Yeah, that's
and
what
I eventually I've recently switched back to like Captain Falcon's car.
Because I've been playing the last one. I started with the green one, and then then I moved over to the pink one. And I don't know. I was pleasantly surprised with how that like handled like pretty intuitive for me, because like I've never felt like I've ever had any degree of control on F-Zero.
Yeah, in that game, I'm usually like just ping-ponging and bouncing off the walls back and forth until I explode, which is, again, why I'm kind of a little surprised with like 99 players on the track. Like, I think I'd be exploding even more frequently.
Right.
But like, I think getting the little tips at first, they're like a little bit confusing because I'm like, man, there's kind of a lot going on in this game. There's like, if you go off a jump, like you can hold forward to like land quicker or hold like pull back to like kind of like stay in the air longer. I need to read. And then like if you're not, if you don't press anything or whatever, and you just kind of like land on the ground, you sort of like hit the ground harder and you kind of like skid and lose some speed. But if at like the very second, like one of the tips was like at the last second before you land, hold back on the D-pad or the joystick or whatever to like soften your landing so that you don't lose speed as you land. So I'm like, man, and especially with how fast this game is, like, I'm like, how do people have time to react to this? To again, where like I'm playing with those hoary split pads, I'm like, I almost kind of want to hook the Joy-Cons back up because having those smaller joysticks, it's kind of, I like using those for Mario Kart because it's just kind of easier to do the drifting and kind of like real quick steering back and forth as opposed to the hoary. You really got to like whip that joystick back and forth or Pro Controller, whatever you're using.
Yeah.
I tend to kind of prefer, for certain games, I just kind of like the Joy-Con, so I'm kind of tempted to bust them out for F-Zero, because they're also maybe designing it with that in mind. I mean, I know it's kind of designed around the original game, but it also always cracks me up when each race starts and you see that huge pan of like the opening starting track of like all 99 racers and just that huge fat like
that
I don't know, just exactly. It just kind of cracks me up. But again, clearly they had to like design that into the game, like stuff that wasn't in there originally. You know, it's not just like here's a version of this that just kind of slapped together multiplayer. You know, it's like they clearly like kind of made a new game out of an old game. It almost feels like a ROM hack or something. Or
which is cool. Like it's F-Zero is kind of an oppressive franchise for being a Nintendo franchise, right? Like it's hard. Even the first F-Zero is hard, let alone you get into F-Zero X on N64, or even worse, like GX on GameCube, which is like flat out impossible, but also amazing in that, you know, sort of back and forth, push and pull sort of way. And I think maybe that's part of why we haven't seen too much F-Zero since, you know, even the Mario Kart track is, you know,
I was just going to say,
right? You know,
those are some of the hardest tracks in the game for sure. Yeah.
You know, but it's cool that they're like, F-Zero does exist. Here it is. And like, and it feels like, you know, what I think, you know, granted, like Kevin, I don't have the most familiarity with F-Zero compared to a lot of other stuff, but I still had, you know, positive connotations with it and wanted something to come afloat for the franchise. So I'm like, hey, it exists. You know, I don't think I've played a full 99 online because there is kind of a tutorialization.
Yeah, it's a little walk you through. You got to play like 25, then 50. Yeah, it's kind of tedious. Yeah.
So I've been doing that and doing fine. Like I still want to keep playing it, you know. And there's that whole like collect the gold orbs for like the super boost thing that they added a couple other little spices.
The track
to it.
Above the track.
Yeah, that too. Yeah. So
which feels like a little arbitrary because sometimes I'm like, man, I feel like I use my boost and like I'm up there for a long time. And then sometimes I feel like I use it and I drop down like immediately. I'm like, what the hell? Maybe I didn't have enough juice. I don't know, but But yeah, I'm not only am I happy to see another F-Zero game though, I'm kind of happy to see another one of these like 99 battle royale games because I kind of forgot about them a little bit, and I really like the Tetris one. I kind of forgot about the Pac-Man one too, but that was also great.
It was,
and I think that's still available. I think the only one they took away was Mario, but I could be wrong about that.
Yeah,
but I know Tetris is still it's so dumb. Like you literally did a ton of work on this, I would imagine. But but yeah, it was just kind of like a nice surprise, and I would love to see potentially some other versions of these battle royale games come out because a racing game kind of seems perfect for it. I don't know, you know, even if they just did like a Mario Kart version of it or something, although that might get too chaotic. Even with 12 players, it's a little too chaotic on Mario Kart 8, but.
No, F-Zero is a thing that exists. Give us a real one now. If enough people keep playing with this, and it gets enough name recognition in the culture, you know, as a brand, give us another real F-Zero.
Yeah, if this makes enough of a splash between that and having like Captain Falcon and Smash, it feels like that's enough cultural relevance to make another F-Zero game.
That's right.
Yeah.
So. I don't know, any other, before we wrap it up, any other quick things from the Nintendo Direct that stood out to you guys or anything? Or, which if not, no big deal, but...
That 1,000-year door, we talked about it a little bit in the preamble, but 1,000-year door, I know that means a lot to us here, and God, that game is brilliant. I was just like, they didn't have to do hardly anything to that game, and that's basically what happened. They could have literally just up-resed it. Yeah, good enough. Yeah. Thanks very much. Yep. Here's my money again. I'm going to buy it physically again. Works for me.
Yeah. I'm definitely pretty pumped about that one. Yeah, that was probably the biggest one for me, but I will say, like, I was pretty pumped about, I mentioned it also a little bit before we started, but that Wargroove 2 announcement, I kind of forgot that they mentioned it a while ago, but like the fact that they're adding a roguelike mode to that game, like I feel like I never dug into the original Wargroove enough because it just didn't have, like, I just wasn't invested enough in playing a full campaign with all these different factions and whatever. I was just like, whatever, I'll play it eventually. And now I'm like, there's a roguelike mode. Maybe I can just dig into it a little more quickly, but maybe not. Who knows? Maybe it'll be just as robust. But there were plenty of other things. I can't think of them off the top of my head. That new Peach game looked pretty cool.
Yeah, Princess Peach
like something a little bit new and different. Yeah, like so.
We're definitely getting that game. Yeah, and I showed Fiona that, who's my 5-year-old, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, yeah!" Like, so that is big time on the radar. We are going to be getting that, no doubt about it.
Yeah, because I got pretty excited when I saw like the sword fighting mechanics, and I was like, oh, this is okay, cool. These two, like the two modes will be cool. And then when they kind of went through more and more, I was like, okay, this is going to be like a really cool experience of a game, I feel.
Yeah.
So yeah, tons of cool stuff. I feel like there were quite a few little nice surprises in there that I wasn't anticipating. Not to mention that I wasn't even anticipating it happening. So
right. Yeah. But just directs aren't on the radar as much as they used to be. So
yep. Nice to get. And then Mario Wonder right around the corner. I feel like we got a lot to look forward to on the Switch these days. So
surprisingly, yeah.
We had some I wasn't expecting this kind of late there. This late swan song push here. So
yeah,
heck yeah. But yeah. Anything else, guys, before we wrap it up? Or
nah, I think we're good.
Nice. Well, yeah, as always, you can find us on the internet at pursuingpixels.com and pretty much everywhere else. Just look up Pursuing Pixels, I guess. And yeah, otherwise, until next week, we'll catch you then and take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything that stuck out to me. Like there was an Atlas game that was like,
unicorn something.
Oh, that actually looked pretty cool. Actually.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like none of the RPGs are grabbing me.
Oh, it was one of those like Vanillaware games, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. It did look cool, but yeah, it was kind of like, okay, I've been there. Oh, they announced that Tomb Raider collection, which whatever.
Yeah.
It didn't look all that up. Oh, the Mario versus Donkey Kong, which looks like it's going to be
played any of those.
Well, best I can tell, it looks like it's going to be a remake of Donkey Kong 94.
No,
I could be wrong about that.
No, I thought it was a remake of the Mario vs. Donkey Kong game, the one that came after that.
But did you have direct control of Mario in that game? I guess I never really played those games. I always thought it was like, because this game because they were like, you can do Mario's like backflip and the handstand flip. And I was like, oh, is this like a Mario 94 remake?
It's a good question.
Now I need to look at this again because
I wasn't as in love with the style of the game. Like it kind of has that new Super Mario Brothers look.
Yeah.
That I don't love. Let's see. Run, jump, and backflip your way to rescuing the stolen mini Mario toys in this puzzling twist on Mario action. Obstacles like spikes, moving platforms, and falling bricks. The rivalry that originally heated up on the Game Boy Advance system. Oh, wait. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the first one after. The first real Mario vs. Donkey Kong, even though 94 was the first where that gameplay came about.
So did you play as Mario in those games? Because I always remember the DS ones were the only ones I ever played where you kind of like just click and like kind of draw things on the screen and then just like hit play and like, it was more like I don't remember what it was even like exactly, but I'm gonna have to look more into that game. Got the new WarioWare. Oh, they announced that Trombone Champ game.
Okay, that actually, no, the multiplayer or like the co-op mode of that looked incredible.
Yeah. You just like, it's just like terrible, nasty.
Yeah, actually, that Splatoon 3 expansion thing looked
That
pretty
Splatoon 3
sweet
looks
too.
so good. What the
It
fuck?
looked awesome. I was like, "Fuck, are they gonna sucker me?" I'm not getting it, but I was like, "They're
putting some muscle into Splatoon, that's for sure."
Like the paint chip shit. Like, that looked good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that Dave the Diver game looked pretty cool.
Yeah,
that was like an indie kind of exploration game. I heard one of our buddies, Nick McConnell, who's I've mentioned him on the podcast a couple times, who's just gone back and forth with a few games with us. And he mentioned that game recently where he was like torn between starting that and something else. And I was like, I've never even heard of that game before. But now that you've mentioned it, like it's on my radar.
I think that was pretty well received on PC too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it got really good reviews. Yeah. Oh, and the new Horizon Chase game, Horizon Chase 2, which whatever. I'm not like that ecstatic about that.
Another arcade racer. Nothing wrong with that.
But yeah, definitely a fun game. And then the WarioWare. Oh, there's another Code game remake.
Oh yeah. Trace
and
Memories.
Then that Prince of Persia Lost Crown 2D game. Again, I wasn't like over the moon about that, but I was like, it looks okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Detective Pikachu Returns.